There's a quiet kind of loneliness baked into the DNA of early video games. Not the loneliness of a Friday night alone, or a lunch period spent with no one to talk to, but something more existential, more designed. The kind of structural solitude that wrapped itself around the player like a fog. Boot up a game from the late 80s or early 90s, Metroid, Castlevania, Mega Man, Out of This World, and you'll notice something strange. You're not just playing solo, you're completely alone. No companions, no co-op, no tutorials, no one to guide you, just you, a blinking sprite in an unforgiving world. Most early games weren't just single player, they were single soul. You were dropped into vast, unknowable spaces with almost no dialogue and even less support. These weren't social sandboxes, they were isolation chambers. And in hindsight, they were kind of beautiful for that. Designers refer to this as negative space, the intentional use of absence to create emotional presence. And while it's a visual term in art, in UX, it can mean something deeper, emotional negative space, where what's missing becomes the very thing you feel the most. In Metroid, you're dropped onto an alien planet. There's no intro sequence, no mission briefing, just music that sounds more like a horror film than an adventure. The level design loops back on itself, the enemies don't talk, and you, Samus, are a bounty hunter with no partner, no handler, no voice. This wasn't a bug, this was the core experience. The game's haunting silence was part of its psychological design, and it worked. Even the UX conventions of the time reinforced the solitude. There was no autosave, no map, no quest log. When you got stuck, you stayed stuck, with nothing but your own persistence and a deepening sense of detachment from the world around you. Compare that to today's games, where someone is always talking, an NPC companion, a mission voiceover, a multiplayer ping. Even single-player titles now feel like ensemble pieces, filled with banter, party dynamics, co-op assists. You're never truly alone. But in early games, isolation was the tension. The design didn't just simulate being alone, it relied on it. Think about Shadowgate, where each screen felt like a medieval death trap and the silence was louder than the music. Or Prince of Persia, where every single jump felt like a leap of faith in a world that offered no reassurance. Or Zelda, the very first screen is just sand, rocks, and a cave. And that phrase, it's dangerous to go alone. But the sword doesn't come with a partner, you go alone anyway. There's a UX principle at play here, sometimes called player-centric immersion. It means the player is the emotional nucleus of the game world. There are no outside relationships, no triangulation. All emotional weight is carried by the player's own decisions and discoveries. It's a risky design because it means the player has to project meaning into the void. The character doesn't talk, so you fill the voice. The world doesn't explain itself, so you decide what it means. It's a forced empathy. And it worked because there was no one else to connect with but yourself. This solitude extended beyond the screen. For many of us, these were games played late at night, alone, in a bedroom. The hum of the CRT, the click of the controller. The only company, a blinking protagonist, struggling through impossible odds, just like you were in your own way. And maybe that's why the victories felt so much bigger. When you beat Ninja Gaiden, no one congratulated you. There was no Twitch chat, no achievement unlocked, just a long, punishing journey finally resolved. The silence, that was your reward. Of course, some of this came from hardware limitations. There wasn't enough memory for party systems, dynamic cutscenes, or reactive AI companions. But what started as a technical constraint became a kind of poetic minimalism. The silence became the soul. It's worth asking, what did we lose when games stopped being lonely? Sure, multiplayer is fun, banter is comforting, but something gets flattened when you're never left to face the unknown alone. If you've ever felt a pang of nostalgia booting up an old cartridge, it might not be for the graphics or the gameplay. It might be for the loneliness, that beautiful pixelated isolation where the world made no promises, the path was yours alone, and the silence meant you were really there.